Thank you for accessing this webcast today. My name is John Pittman, and I'm the Vice President of Industry Affairs at the American Society of Travel Agents. ASTA is providing this webcast to the industry for free to ensure the entire industry is aware of the new DOT consumer protection rules and can adjust their businesses accordingly. For those of you that are not aware of what ASTA is, we are a nonprofit trade association that represents the travel agency industry. ASTA is the only trade association that actively represents travel agents and the travel agency industry to the U.S. government, as well as state and local governments. For example, in the past year, we have represented the industry's interests with various proposed laws, regulations, and policies that in many cases may have resulted in costly consequences to your business if no one were there representing your interests. Well, I could go on about what ASTA is doing. The purpose of today's call is to review DOT's new consumer protection rules. In early 2011, the U.S. Department of Transportation introduced new rules designed to enhance passenger rights and to improve the air travel environment for consumers. A few of these rules became effective on August 23, 2011, yet the rules that may have the most dramatic impact on your business are effective January 24 and January 26. These rules are the ones that pertain to full fare advertising, baggage fee disclosures, and restrictions on post-purchase price increases. Since these rules will significantly impact the regulatory environment in which you operate, and since failure to comply could result in substantial civil penalties, it is important that you become familiar with these rules and their impact to your business. The first one is the full fare advertising rule, which is cited under Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations of Statute 399.84. On this slide, you will find the actual statute as it appears in the Code of Federal Regulations. I know at this point you're thinking to yourself that the last thing you want for me to do is to read a complex federal rule. And I'm not. Instead, I'm going to translate these statutes in plain, easy to understand English. Let's start with the most important rule. Number 1, you must advertise, display, and/or state the full, all-inclusive price to be paid by the consumer. This means that you must include all mandatory components, including government taxes and fees, as well as all mandatory agency fees, such as your transaction fees. If you operate an online consumer booking tool that offers either airfares or tour and cruise packages that contain an air component, you should consult with your system providers, such as your GDS or your online booking tool provider, to ensure the necessary updates will be in place by January 26. Likewise, if you advertise airfares or cruise and tour packages that contain an air component, please be certain that your ads contain the full and final all-inclusive price. Here you will find 4 examples for displaying or advertising airfares. The first 2 examples are acceptable. The last 2 are not. As you can see, DOT allows you to break out the taxes, but effective January 26, the full all-inclusive price must be presented and it must be prominent. Number 2, you are prohibited from including optional products in the price presented to your customer when selling airfares or packages containing air. Effective January 26, automatically including optional products like travel insurance in the price presented to your customer is prohibited. So if you have an online booking tool and travel insurance is pre-checked, then you must modify your booking tool so that the consumer is required to opt in rather than opt out. Likewise, if you automatically include an optional product when verbally quoting airfare or a cruise or tour package including air, then you must modify your procedures so that the optional product is offered separately. Number 3, effective January 26, you are prohibited from using the term one-way when advertising airfares if round-trip travel is required. In addition, close attention must be paid to advertising airfares as each way. The use of pricing held out as each way when round-trip travel is required can only be used if disclosure of the round-trip purchase requirement is clearly and conspicuously noted in the advertisement. Number 4, you are prohibited from passing on allowable price increases unless you have obtained your customer's consent. effective January 24 for an airline ticket or a cruise or tour package containing an air component. Once a transaction is under deposit, a price increase can only be passed on to your customer, provided that you obtain your customer's written consent of the potential for the increase prior to purchase. Likewise, once full payment is made, only a government-imposed tax or fee increase can be passed on to your customer. Yet such increases can only be passed on to your customer, provided that you have obtained your customer's written consent of the potential for the increase prior to purchase. While this is designed to ensure consumers are aware of the potential for price increases, it will increase your burden for obtaining consumer consent. Obtaining consent is especially important when selling tour or cruise packages containing air, as post-purchase price increases do occur from time to time. For example, if you have a tour package that includes air and it's under deposit and the supplier informs you of a $50 per passenger fuel surcharge increase, you would only be allowed to collect the surcharge from your customer if you had obtained your customer's consent at the time of initial purchase. With telephone sales, DOT requires you to obtain signed written consent or recorded oral consent. Your failure to obtain consent could result in the supplier seeking the surcharge from you. Going forward, suppliers may require that you obtain written consent from your customers. In the absence of such instruction, ASTA strongly encourages you to obtain signed written consent at the time of purchase using your own supplier waiver agreement. ASTA's sample supplier waiver agreement can be found at asta.org. The sample language contained in the agreement can be found here. Number 5. If you operate an online consumer booking tool, you must inform your customers on the first screen where fare quotation for a specific itinerary is found that additional fees for bags may apply and where your customers can go to see these fees. If this applies to you, you should consult with your system providers such as your GDS or your online booking tool provider to ensure the necessary updates are in place by January 24. Number 6. On all e-ticket confirmations, you must include one of the following. Option 1. The standard free baggage allowance and/or fees for carry-on first and second check bags, along with a note stating that additional discounts may apply depending on flyer-specific factors such as frequent flyer status, military, or credit card used. Option 2. A direct link to the applicable airline's baggage allowance and fee information. Or Option 3. A direct link to a page on your website where the applicable airline's baggage allowance and fee information is maintained. Since one of the options listed here must be provided on the e-ticket receipt, you should consult with your GDS provider for their solution. This rule is effective January 24, 2012. There are other parts of these rules that will directly impact the airlines, and while these rules may not have a direct impact on you, they will impact the guidance that you provide your customers. The 3 most significant items are: Number 1. Once full payment is made, an airline is not allowed to increase its mandatory fees such as a fuel surcharge or its bag fees. DOT considers baggage to be an essential optional service. As such, the fees in place at the time of ticketing must be honored by the airline, even if the services are purchased at a later date. While the new rule technically prohibits the airlines from increasing other non-essential optional services and products such as pillows, drinks, meals, upgrades after ticket purchase, DOT has indicated that it will not enforce this part of the rule for now and will re-examine this issue further with its next rulemaking, which is due out in August. Number 2, the airlines must allow a reservation to either be held at the quoted fare without payment or canceled after purchase without penalty for at least 24 hours after the reservation is made. Reservations made within 1 week of a flight's departure date are exempt from this rule. While this does not apply to the agency distribution channel, it is important that you be aware of this requirement. Your only option for offering your customers a competitive alternative is for you to issue the ticket to guarantee the fare and void it, if needed, through the ARC system. Please note that the legacy airlines have voluntarily and quietly offered this concession to consumers for over a decade as part of their customer commitment plans. Number 3. The baggage allowances and fees that apply at the beginning of a passenger's itinerary must apply throughout the entire journey. This is a significant change to how baggage policies are applied today, and it's a radical change to how baggage policies are applied outside the U.S. As noted here, the baggage fees and allowances established by the first airline apply throughout the entire journey. And if the first flight is a code share, then the marketing airline's policies apply. This rule is effective January 24 and applies to domestic and international flights to, from, or within the U.S. Please note, with international itineraries, the first airline has the option of applying IATA's most significant carrier rules to the entire journey. However, to do so, the first airline must disclose this policy on its website. This is an example of a domestic interline ticket applying the new rules. As you can see, Segment 1 is on Airline A. Segment 2, which is not a connection, is on Airline B, with the return from New York to Miami back on Airline A. In this example, Airline A's baggage policy applies to all segments, including Segment B. This is an example of an international interline itinerary with no code share. In this example, there are 3 airlines listed in the journey. It's a flight from Dallas to Madrid with a stopover in Amsterdam. As with the first example, Airline A's baggage policy applies to all segments. Please note that if Airline A states in its policy that it follows IATA's MSC methodology for interline journeys, then Airline B's policies as the carrier across the Atlantic would apply since Airline B is the MSC. So what's next, you ask? DOT Consumer Rules Number 3 rulemaking is due to be released in August 2012. In this rulemaking, DOT will ask if it should require carriers to display ancillary fees in the GDS channel. In our opinion, this is an important question. Access to transactable ancillary content is perhaps the biggest battle facing the travel agency community today. With the unbundling of airfare components, travel agency access to content is becoming increasingly fragmented. It has almost reached the point where travel agencies today sell nothing more than the entitlement to board a plane. And consumers are being asked by the airline to go directly to the airline to acquire the previously unbundled products and services like seat assignments. It is our hope that this rulemaking will force the airlines to not only provide ancillary fee information through the agency channel, but also make it transactable. DOT also plans to ask if it should require minimum customer service standards on travel agencies, as is required of the carriers in the Consumer Rules 2 rulemaking. DOT also has plans to ask if it should require the disclosure of the airlines that travel agents sell or do not sell, and if travel agencies should disclose the incentive payments they receive in connection with the sale of air transportation. DOT also has plans to ask if it should require disclosure of any preferential displays or fares within travel agents' internet displays. As you can see, there's a lot going on here at ASTA. We thank those of you that support your industry by maintaining a membership in ASTA, and we ask those of you that aren't members to come on board. Membership information can be found at asta.org. Thank you for listening.